Shoes are another concern. The CDC has said the COVID-19 virus can survive on surfaces for a number of hours, even days. So many people are concerned that they could bring the germ in on their shoes.
Ew. Yo, what up guys? Welcome back to Sneaker Stories. As always, I'm your host Chris Jack. Today, checking out 5 tips for keeping your shit clean. Something like that. I got an email from a shoe cleaning company highlighting some tips for keeping your shoes free of COVID-19 and other pathogens and things like that. And there's been a lot of talk on major sneaker platforms and channels, I guess, on Instagram, etc. Just basically saying it's possible for this virus to actually be transported on your shoes. And there's some preliminary tests that have come from the CDC, which I'll link in the description below, where they've picked up traces of COVID-19 on the soles of people's shoes. But supposedly these are just on doctors and nurses' shoes that are working in an ICU unit, which has got tons of that stuff going around. But
I'm not a doctor, as you possibly have found out.
You know, there's varying opinions of it, and I'll link all the different links to these opinions below in the description, so you guys can make your own judgment on how much you really want to believe that your shoes can actually transport or at least be a breeding ground for something like COVID-19. But it did get me thinking that, you know, like the bottom of our shoes and stuff are pretty nasty places. It's not actually like the COVID-19 I'm too stressed about. It's all the other kind of stuff that gets on there. And there are specific studies that have proven that there's a whole bunch of really nasty pathogens and fecal matter and all of that kind of stuff, which is on the outside of your shoes pretty much every time you step into the streets. So I thought today's video, I'm just going to share 5 tips which have come to light of how you can minimize your risk to not just COVID-19 on your shoes, but all the other kind of ass that comes along with that. Now, first things first, this company is not paying me to make this video at all, but it's something that I thought that is actually pretty valuable knowledge. So I'm hoping that these tips and this video provide some kind of value to you guys that are watching. So without further ado, let's get into the 5 tips starting right here. Duh. Now this is obviously a no-brainer. I mean, surely, right? That's a no-brainer? Absolutely, I think so. But how many of us actually do this on a regular basis? I mean, obviously I've got a lot of shoes in here. I do clean them quite often, probably more often than most people do, but it's still not actually enough. So what I'm talking about here is if I told you that every time you stepped into the streets, you were picking up fecal matter and E. coli bacteria and things like that on the outsoles of your shoes, and then just kind of like walking them back in your house and putting them in rooms and playing with them every day and rubbing your face, you probably want to clean them a little bit more, right? Now, I know a lot of you guys have been asking me for a specific cleaning video. It was just something I definitely want to do down the line. I have done some on Instagram before, on the Sneaker Stories page, of course, but I think there could be some cool opportunity to do something with one of our local brands here. So hopefully we can work on something like that with one of them in the future, where I really want to get into the detail of product and all of that kind of stuff that is available to us. So for the purpose of today's video, I'm just going to tell you what I basically use and what I think is the best thing to do. And this is something that we should be doing pretty much every time we wear our kicks if we really want to be that anal. But all things considered, I don't think I've ever got sick from a pair of my shoes before. So, I mean, you take that as you will. So to be honest, the product that I do use the most is actually Sneaker Lab. They are the company that sent me these tips on keeping your shoes clean. So as I mentioned, this isn't a paid thing, but I do genuinely use their product a lot, specifically their sneaker wipes. So these are the easiest way to clean your shoes. They've got a sneaker wipe, which is just a general kind of use version. And then they've got a leather wipe as well, which is this one over here. And with the leather product, this is specifically for leather shoes, as you probably would have guessed. And I use those on things like my Louis Vuittons. It just basically conditions them a little bit better than a general use wipe. Although I don't really know that, but I'm assuming that there is something in here which is better for leather products. So I've got both of these and I've got lots of them. I use them pretty much all the time. It's so easy just to be able to like rip one open, take this thing out and like, you know, give a little bit of a midsole clean or something like that. I mean, that just pretty much gets it right off there. Nothing like cleaning shoes. And then with this particular kind of kit, you are going to need a microfiber cloth as well. This is, to me, the most important part of cleaning anything. You want to be able to wipe the dirt off it. So they also have a microfiber cloth as well. That's part of their brand, but any microfiber cloth will do. And then you can basically just wipe all of that stuff off and it leaves things absolutely clean. Now, this is something that you could use for the outsole of your shoe to be able to get that bacteria and stuff off. The beautiful thing about Sneaker Lab product and why I like it the most is that the product inside here, the cleaning like enzymes, well, it's one of the only products that I know of that actually has like a probiotic enzyme. And the craziest thing about this particular enzyme, it just eats away any kind of organic matter. So if you've got like a drop of blood somewhere like on your shoe or whatever, you can spray some of their cleaner, which obviously they sell like this as well. And you can basically just leave that on there and you can just watch it eat away any organic matter. So it's a really, really awesome product, and obviously it's a local one, so it's a big favorite for mine because I do love to support local. So this is a really big winner for me. As I mentioned, the wipes are generally something I use for like the upper and the midsoles of the shoe, occasionally the outsole as well, but sometimes you actually want to be able to get in a little bit more heavier with that using some of the scrubbing brushes, which are like these. I've actually got a whole bunch of different scrubbing brushes. This is like a medium bristle one. You do have like harder bristles and things like that, but I'm not actually sure if Sneaker Lab's got variant bristle strength, but obviously depending on the upper of the shoe, you're going to want to be able to like use different strengths as to not like ruin the upper or anything like that. But to really clean the outsoles of the shoe properly, I will suggest using that brush and the cleaner and really just get in there as much as you can to be able to get all that dirt and bacteria or any kind of organic matter off the shoes, so it doesn't create this breeding ground for things to just get nasty. On to the next tip. Keep and store your shoes in one single place. Now, I'm not talking about having to have a room for your shoes or a specific place that you have to keep them, but what I am referring to is try to leave these things at the door if you can. This is something that obviously we pick up in Asia a lot. It's just general custom for people. Like when I was in Japan, you had to take your shoes off for restaurants, bathrooms, changing rooms, in stores, anything like that. The shoes are going off. And it's something that I just don't know why the rest of us haven't taken on to that. Maybe it's just not how we were brought up in like maybe particular Western culture or something of that sort. But it is something that just makes so much sense, because if you think about it, when you're bringing all these pathogens and bacteria and germs back in on your shoes, you generally are going to be walking them all over your lounge, your bedroom, probably putting them up on your coffee table or wherever they might be. And that's obviously just going to spread the germs around your house. If you've got kids that play on the floor and pick things up and put them in their mouth, you know, it's just creating an opportunity to be able to spread these things further throughout your house. So if you can and you have a space to leave them at the door, then obviously that's going to work out best for you. If you do want something cool to keep your shoes up off the floors and just a cool display rack, I have linked one in the description below from Superbalist, which I think is reasonably affordable and it looks pretty cool and does the trick, but only obviously holds a couple of shoes. But that might be fine if you put your shoes there temporarily, or the ones you wear the most. You can always transfer them back into your closet or wherever else you keep your kicks. On to tip number 3. Keep them dry. So obviously with winter coming in, there's going to be a lot more moisture around with rain and wet conditions that we might find ourselves having to walk through when you're going to the grocery store or anything like that. And obviously a moist environment and a warm, moist environment, especially something like in your shoe, really just creates this hotbed and a breeding ground for other sort of bacteria and viruses to fester in. And that's something we want to avoid at all costs. So when you get home and your shoes are potentially wet, make sure you do everything you can to dry them, whether that's leaving them in a sunny area, if the weather permits, of course, or maybe just using a hairdryer just to get all that moisture out as quickly as possible. Don't just let them sit in a dark room, because they will get just stiff and nasty and smell terrible. And that's just something that we want to avoid at all costs to keep out any unhappy hunting grounds for microbial guests. Another thing you can consider is getting shoe ponchos. Now, I got these particular shoe ponchos from my sister for Christmas. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So I'm just going to show you what this is going to look like on foot. Okay, so with shoe ponchos, you're going to want to buy shoe ponchos that actually fit the size of your foot. Otherwise, they're not going to really work too well. But if you didn't have a shoe on, you could probably use them as booties or something like that if they are too small. But yeah.
Oh boy. Oh, it's gone badly. There we are.
Get the right size. Last but not least, you can also use another product that Sneaker Lab has and a whole bunch of other sneaker cleaning companies as well. But this is the one that I particularly use. It is a sneaker protector. You can basically just coat this with a hydrophobic spray and that's going to basically just repel water off it. So we should be able to do a little test here to see if that's actually going to work. Just to show you up there, you'll just notice how the water completely beads off the shoe. Pretty cool, eh? What a vibe. Tip number 4. Say no to beaten up beaters. So it goes without saying, obviously, the more wrecked your shoes are on the exterior of them, the more likely or the more opportunity there is for bacteria and viruses to make their way through the shoe into the interior of it. So there's research that suggests that there's 140 times more bacteria and virus and nasty things and pathogens and whatever you want to call them on the outside of your shoes than they are on the inside. So you really want to do whatever you can at all costs to prevent that from transmitting inside to where your feet are, because that would just be nasty as fuck. So obviously, and only if you can help it, avoid wearing completely beaten up shoes outdoors if you can. Otherwise, you can also get something like a shoe glue. This one I just picked up at a hardware store for like 42 bucks. That's around, of course. Where you can basically just glue those holes and cracks or anything on the outsole or the exterior of the shoe closed, just basically increasing the protection all around. Do people still really wear dirty socks or leave dirty socks in shoes? Sis. So I guess it goes without saying, do not leave dirty socks left in your pair of shoes when you get home. You know, when you sometimes just tuck them in there, nice and warm, leave them overnight, maybe take them out the next day, because when you do that, you're creating a preferable environment for other bad, nasty things to grow in there. And oh, nah, surely you don't do that, right? Hey, you don't do that. But yeah, I guess this one goes without saying as well. Don't wear dirty socks. Don't leave dirty socks in your shoes. Don't let them fester. Put that shit in the washing basket when you get home. Keep your shoes at the door and you should be fine. Well, there we have it, folks. There's 5 tips for minimizing your risk or exposure to any kind of bacteria or pathogens on your shoes, especially in times like these. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up right now if you can, and don't forget to subscribe right here for more content like this down the line. But that's from me. Hope you guys stay safe, stay home. I'll catch you on the next one.